Face to face with the Commonwealth's past and present on a visit to the island of Tobago. This, an old-time Tobago wedding, a reminder of old colonial days. But then a display by the island's school children showing one of the biggest challenges facing many Commonwealth nations. Climate change is having an effect on Tobago too. The rising sea temperatures destroying the island's fragile coral reefs. In neighbouring Trinidad, Commonwealth heads of state have been trying to build momentum ahead of next month's crucial climate change talks in Copenhagen. And in a first for the Commonwealth, they enlisted the support of the Danish Prime Minister and the head of the United Nations, who both believe progress is being made.
My message to all the world leaders here today has been simple. Stay focused, stay committed, and come to Copenhagen and seal a deal.
This is the last international summit before Copenhagen, and world leaders here have expressed good intentions about tackling climate change. But the big question, will they back up those words with hard commitments in just a couple of weeks' time? Last night, the Queen hosted a dinner for Commonwealth leaders, many of whom will travel next month to Copenhagen. They've signalled their intent, but it's too early to toast success. A deal on climate change is not there yet. Jonathan Beale, BBC News, Port of Spain, Trinidad.
Some climate campaigners have criticised so-called carbon offsetting, saying the concept provides another excuse to keep polluting. They claim the schemes, which allow individuals and businesses to compensate for their carbon emissions by funding green projects, are a distraction from the real issues and should be abandoned.
This project in India is replacing kerosene lamps with solar-powered lights. Another in Europe is capturing methane gas from pig farms. These projects are funded by carbon offsetting, when we decide to pay to remove the carbon released into the atmosphere by our lifestyles. In the past decade, we've been given more and more opportunities to offset activities such as flying, driving, even heating our homes. But now the first travel company to offer carbon offsetting is ditching it, saying it's not working.
They're perceived as this magic pill, this get-out-of-jail card free, if you like. That means you don't need to change your behaviour, that you can go on flying just as much as you were before, or you can run your hotel just as much as you were before and the way you were before. But through this magic pill, suddenly you could assuage your guilt.
This paper supplier has done exactly what environmental groups say all businesses should be doing. It's made big cuts to its own carbon footprint. It's also offering customers the opportunity to carbon offset the paper they buy. At the moment, only a small percentage do this.
I think there's a need for customers to understand exactly what it means, but it's certainly an area we're spending a lot of time working with our customers to help them understand it.
Here they've managed to cut their carbon footprint by over a quarter, as well as offsetting as much as possible. But environmentalists say simply offsetting alone does not work, as it allows us all to think we can continue business as usual.
We understand why people would have wanted, if you like, to offset in the belief that it was reducing their emissions, but it isn't working. And we all have to recognise now the science says we've got to cut our emissions really at home, and that means governments and individuals doing everything they can to reduce their genuine carbon impact, and offsetting doesn't do that.
Carbon offsetting is a huge and complicated business, operating on intergovernmental levels right down to individual projects funded by voluntary schemes.
Oh, it is working. People who are using offsetting to take responsibility for their unavoidable emissions need to understand that that's a good thing, it's making a difference, and it's funding projects that reduce emissions right around the world.
The government admits tackling this has been a steep learning curve for all. It now accepts individual carbon offsetting alone is not working.
Of course, it's not a solution to climate change. It's a tiny contribution. I think it does help people to think about what they're doing, but we do need emissions reductions on a quite different scale, and that is, of course, why we have a Climate Change Act and absolute limits on our emissions in this country.
There is no simple answer to the to offset or not to offset question. While there are some real benefits, environmentalists say it's not about offsetting our emissions, but avoiding them in the first place. Keith Doyle, BBC News.
You're watching BBC News. Let's return now to that